Hi everyone, welcome to week 9. Just going to go over what we need to do this week. You will have a choice of essays to talk about, not about technology. Some of you may be relieved. And this week you'll have a choice between the Declaration of Independence and Stanton's response. And also you may want to talk about one or both of King's essays. In your response, I'm looking for you to discuss the way that the article that you choose makes an argument. Are they using emotion? Are they using evidence? How are they showing their position? So rather than agreeing or disagreeing, I want you to talk about how these writers are making arguments. After you've done that, you will be looking at the areas for revision, which I'll be giving answers to in a couple of days, but I want you to complete this first, and I'm going to show you the most important areas of this handout. These are areas that you will need to address in your final portfolio. So the first is your thesis, and I recommend that you start here because this is worth the most points. If you don't know what you're going to show in your paper, it won't really matter how good your grammar is. So this main argument needs to be upfront so that your reader has a map of what's to follow. If it's something that you came to at the end of your paper in Essay 1, you want to move that up, and this is the chance to do so for the final portfolio. The second area, integrating the text, is important, and it's one of the ways that you can strengthen and lengthen your essay. So rather than just start a paragraph with a source, you're going to tell us first what the source is supporting. So is the source supporting your argument, or is the source supporting your counter-argument? And that matters because if it is a source that is disagreeing with you, you need to tell us that first and show why this position is weaker than yours. So once you've introduced the thesis point, you're going to set up the passage. So tell us who's talking, where they're talking, so the author and the name of the article. You do not need to tell us anything about their degrees or anything about the publication. You're going to cite it correctly, whether in a paraphrase or in a direct quotation, but it's going to be cited the same way, which is author, page number, no comma, in the parentheses. And this has been something you've been practicing with your individual posts. The final thing you're going to do is, rather than just leaving the quotation to dangle in the paragraph, you're going to respond to the quotation, explaining how this supports your larger argument about the text. The next area is MLA citation, and this is where I want you to review your the links from last week and the handouts and the quiz that you did. Here's an example of how to cite a poem, for example. The only difference is you include that these are line numbers instead of page numbers. But you want to make sure that you are including the direct quotation. Redundant phrases, you want to go through your essay and be asking if there are any fluff phrases or things that you don't need to say. For example, in conclusion, if you're in the final paragraph of your essay, you don't need to tell us that you are there. You can just conclude your essay. You also don't need to refer to yourself repeatedly in this essay or to your own opinions. Finally, ask yourself if you are using past tense or present tense in your essay. If you switch back and forth, it confuses your reader. Generally speak in the present tense, unless you're talking about an event that occurred in the past. Here are the areas that you'll need to work on, and these, I would recommend that you print this out and go ahead and answer and make the corrections here. So the first is a sentence fragment, and this basically means you're missing a subject or a verb. So to prove my argument, passages from this essay will be used to answer 3 questions. So in number 1, you can correct this by using the semicolon correctly. And the semicolon is not a period or a comma. It's kind of an indecisive punctuation that suggests a pause, but it does not suggest it's stronger than a comma. So you need to actually have a complete thought. To prove my argument is not a sentence. So you need to either put a comma, since this is an introductory clause, or you need to change the sentence so that it's complete. Right now, this part is the fragment. And when you read it aloud, you can ask yourself what's missing. Is there a subject or a verb missing? Sometimes long sentences could be fragments. They're still missing a verb or a subject. Comma splices are pretty common, particularly in the first essay. So this is when you separate two complete thoughts with just a comma. So it needs either a semicolon or a period. Another way is to add a conjunction like and or but. So to correct this, that statement was powerful for so many reasons. Period. For one, comma, there are a lot of people with bachelor degrees who are not working in the field. This is a combination of a comma splice and a run-on, so it needs some type of punctuation in the middle to make it clear what you're trying to say. Missing commas after introductory clauses, however, is an introductory clause, but so is in conclusion, which hopefully you'll be getting rid of. All of these indicate that something is to follow, and if you take them out, this part of the sentence is still complete. There was some confusion between effect and affect. You want to make sure that, in general, effect is a noun, the effect of global warming, versus affect, which is a verb. This film affected you emotionally. Number 5, if you use the phrase not only, it needs to be followed with but also. So this not only affects the people around her, comma, but it also affects her as well. Subject-verb agreement, you want to ask yourself if the verb you're using matches with the subject that comes before it. So if they're separated by lots of other words, you need to go back. Here the sentence reads, I disagree because I believe lectures give students the path to a successful and knowledgeable college education. So you want to make sure that if there's words in the middle, you go back to the subject, which is lectures. Finally, the ellipsis. When you're using this type of punctuation within a quotation, it indicates you've taken something out. So you do not need one at the beginning or the end because it is assumed that there is material that precedes and follows what you're talking about. If you have any questions about these areas of grammatical revisions, please let me know. You can look up each of these at this link here, and I will be available to answer questions before you take the quiz, but I would advise you to look at the answers before taking the quiz to make sure you've got it. Finally, going back to this week, the last thing you'll be doing is, now that you've turned in Essay 2, you're going to be starting on Essay 3. And I want you to be reading the description of what an annotated bibliography is and start working on it. It basically will be a short abstract describing your topic and a list of 3 sources, actually 2 sources I'm asking for. So in here, you're going to see that the topic is pretty much up to you. I've given you topics from things we talked about throughout the semester and even ones we haven't yet talked about. Ideas for making your paper stronger and longer, and a list of deadlines. So week 10, you need to turn in an abstract and annotated bibliography, and the essay will be due at the end of week 13. And this, you'll have at least 2 sources with a maximum of 3, and all of the other requirements are the same, including your page length. If you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, I will see you online. Thank you.